This is my second take because my phone died because it didn't have enough storage, so I'm sad. I was almost done with my video, so I have to start over again. Alright, so chapter 5 was the study of structuralism, Titchener's promotion of structuralism. Structuralism structuralism concerned itself with examining and categorizing elements of conscious thought. For example, because that sounds a little confusing. For example, Titchener believed in looking at an item and describing it exactly as you saw it. So if you were to see a pumpkin, you would describe it as round, orange, and hard with a brown stem on top, instead of just calling it a pumpkin, because by calling it a pumpkin, you have created the stimulus error. And the stimulus error was basically assumption. It was using assumption. So assuming that somebody already knows what a pumpkin is by just calling it a pumpkin. Therefore, you just use the words to describe what you are actively looking at in that moment. 3 elements of consciousness were sensations, images, and feelings. And structuralism believed that the role of psychology was to study the framework of the mind through analysis and experimentation. And so chapter 6 discusses, I don't know if you would call it like the opposite of structuralism, but just another school of thought when it comes to psychology, and this is called functionalism. So we learned that structuralism concerned itself of being like a pure science, whereas functionalism concerned itself with being an applied science. Functionalism was concerned with how the mind functions, or how it's used by an organism or individual or an animal to adapt to its environment. And Darwin came up with the theory of evolution whenever he was learning about functionalism, and he believed that evolution concerned itself with the definition of, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, but evolution believed that organisms and animals and people evolved due to its environment over time. So some of the influences that Darwin had on psychology was, one of the big ones, I guess, was promoting animal science slash behavioralism, or animal science, animal psychology. He also believed that concerning consciousness, he thought that he believed that like functionalism should be over structuralism, meaning that science should be used in an applied way to, I don't know how to explain it well, and I'm supposed to because I'm making this video, but I guess science should be used as a way to, I don't know, better the environment, better the people around you. Another influence that he had on psychology, Darwin had on psychology, was the accepting the methodologies and data from other fields such as archaeology, biology, in order to sorry, I got startled by my ice machine. In order to promote functionalism and to promote psychology as a whole. Alright, so that was chapter 6. Chapter 7, we'll learn about some role figures when it comes to the founding of functionalism. I almost said functionology. Functionalism. So we learn about Herbert Spencer. He was one of the role characters in the founding of psychology. He wasn't a psychologist though, he was a philosopher. However, he wrote books that were used in, he wrote books and like different articles that were used as a standard curriculum at universities in the psychology department. Herbert Spencer promoted the idea of social Darwinism, and social Darwinism came like super big. I think this was around the year 1860. So about this time, social Darwinism would have been promoted really big in America due to like the idea of self-sufficiency, free enterprise, becoming independent from the government. So yeah, Herbert Spencer talked a lot about social Darwinism, and I don't know how to explain it well. It concerned itself with like the survival of the fittest, and because there was such like a pushback on like government assistance and stuff, because people don't want their taxes to pay for that. You know, things haven't changed much since then. But people thought that poor people should just, you know, die out. They don't need help because they obviously can't survive, so why help them? Stuff like that. Let's see. Another key figure was William James. He wrote a book called The Principles of Psychology. And he is quoted to say something along the lines of that psychology is the science of the mental. What is he? I can't remember. It says it's the science of the mental, I guess, of mentality, both of the phenomena and of their conditions. And the phenomena indicates the content of the psychology to be found in an immediate experience, and the conditions refers to the portions of the body, brain, most importantly the brain, in mental life. Let's see what else. So some of the criticisms concerning functionalism was trying to figure out if it was a pure science or a applied science. And some of the contributions of functionalism was behavioralism and animal psychology, and also studies that contributed towards infants and children and people with mental disabilities. Alright, so in chapter 8, I had previously made a video of that, so I'm just gonna kind of touch a little bit on it. One of the main people was James Cattell, in that he adopted the idea from Want that science should be a scientific and a data-driven, that there should be a scientific and a data-driven approach to psychology. There was a focus on individual differences in mental testing, and we had learned of the testing that was conducted during like World War I in order to find the best fit for soldiers in the military, yada yada. Sorry, I'm looking at my time and I'm about to run out. Chapter 9, we learned of behaviorism. Finally got into behavioralism. We learned that John B. Watson had wanted to break away from both structuralism and functionalism and create a completely different school of thought that was independent from those two schools of thought. And it was behavioralism. And Watson believed that psychology should be observable and measured by observable and objective behaviors. I'm trying not to run out of time, but I don't know. So we learned that Pavlov, we learned about classical conditioning, and classical conditioning is a theory of association. We learned that there was a bell that started out as a neutral stimulus, and then when he paired the bell with food, it became a conditioned stimulus, and then the conditioned stimulus produced a learned response, which was the saliva that the dog admitted during that. And then we learned about, I don't know how to say this dude's name, Bekhterev, where he introduced the idea of associative reflexes, and it was just muscular and motor responses, this, that, and the other. Okay, I have 1 more minute. Okay, so we learned all about behavioralism and all about John B. Watson in chapter 10. So I want to do a little bit about how this applies to my life. I am an RBT. I work with kids on the autism spectrum, so I deal with behavioralism every single day of my life. I apply methods of behavioralism to my kids. I take ABC data, which means when my kids express a behavior, I take data every day of the antecedent, like what happened before the behavior, like what I observed the behavior, and then the consequence, like what happened after the behavior, such as like someone screamed, it caused my kiddo to become dysregulated, and then therefore the consequence was they hit someone. I could go on and on about how all this applies to me, but time is up already. I really enjoyed learning about, really diving in to behavioralism and learning about like the dark side of things, how kind of, I don't know, inhumane it got at times, and that was super concerning to me. But it also made me appreciate, like, I don't know, you can learn from other people's past mistakes, and I really enjoy this class. Like, I talk about it all the time. So anyway, I am out of time, but thank you so much and have a great one.